Driver's Ed, Chapter 7, page 103. But it was the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Everybody in America had Thursday and Friday off, the entire country having family reunions, turkey, and stuffing. Let Mr. Thompson put it in the paper only once, thought Remy. Don't let him run it again next week. Don't let anybody in Driver's Ed want a reward. Mr. Thompson didn't give a dollar amount for the reward. What would it take for somebody to tell? $1,000? $10,000? $25,000? If Driver's Ed gets questioned, if they ask our parents who went out that night, if they search our houses, don't let it happen. Who did she think was listening? She'd run out of handy little gods. Denise Thompson must have begged a fairy godmother or guardian angel to get her out of that intersection, and nobody had come to her aid. Why would one come to Remy's? Morgan's father, of course, read every newspaper, as well as watching every television newscast. He ripped out the ad before he recycled the paper and left it loosely folded on the coffee table. The bottom half hung where Morgan had to read it over and over. Don't sleep tonight, lie there. Think about my wife. Think about my motherless son. Reward. Tell me who murdered my wife. It worked for Morgan. He didn't sleep. Thanksgiving was the only holiday on which the scattered Marlin family came together. Everybody drove Wednesday night to Aunt Marion's, bringing sleeping bags and air mattresses, except elderly relatives with hotel reservations. Remy, her brothers, her cousins, second cousins, and this year newly inherited cousins from a remarriage all slept on the floor, a slumber party from infants, Henry, to college kids. Aunt Marion provided the turkeys. It took 3 to feed the crowd. Remy's family was responsible for bread, and there were pumpkin rolls, corn spoon bread, cranberry muffins, buttermilk biscuits, and long thin cylinders of French bread. They were oven hot, and set enticingly among them was room soft sweet butter packed in pretty little bowls. Grandmother Marlin, who was deaf and confused, hugged each grandchild in a continual round of affection. It was like Driver's Ed. Remy got more than her fair share of hugs, because Grandma could not remember how far down the line she'd gotten installed next to Remy. The family smiled and let it go. The unhugged kids reminded Grandma what their names were, and Grandma said, "Of course, darling, you've grown so much." They ate most of the day, taking seconds and thirds with family gossip, television, football, and outdoor games for the kids in between. Sleeping bags were finally unzipped around midnight, after the littlest kids had just collapsed on the floor, to sleep like cats wherever they gave up. Remy tucked way down inside her sleeping bag. Cousins talked without her, mainly of cars. Who had a license? Who was waiting for one? Who had a car? Who was saving for one? Who had backed over a trike left in the driveway, and who had gotten a speeding ticket? The sleeping bag was safe and dark and warm. Inside, she let herself cry. Denise Thompson had not just had a husband Mark and a son Bobby. Somewhere lived her mother and father, brothers, maybe, and sisters, cousins. Would Thanksgiving for Denise Thompson have been a family reunion? Had that family spent Thanksgiving weeping for the 26-year-old who would never give thanks again? Thanksgiving at home did not happen in the Campbell family. Morgan's mother believed hotels existed in order to save her from that kind of thing. Every year they went someplace special. This year, it was Bermuda. Morgan loved Bermuda. He loved the bicycling and the sand, the wind and the people. It was a vacation of the mind. Even stars seemed desirable to Morgan those 3 days at the resort. She was good company. She laughed. She was nice. He and Star bicycled past a little intersection with no signs. No stop signs, no yield signs, no arrows or names. Morgan pedaled on, trying to have no thoughts, to be nothing but legs pumping wheels. All we did was take an octagon of wood off of a post. It isn't my problem that somebody came along. A good driver would have known enough to stop, even without the sign. Star was so far ahead of him that she turned, came back, and cycled in a circle around him, laughing. Daydreamer, she said. Are you in love? Tell me who it is. How strange, thought Morgan, actually smiling at his sister, actually liking her. I'm the one now who is not nice. Sunday, they flew back. Their 4 telephones combined had 23 messages blinking away, and the fax had dumped page after page on the floor behind his father's desk. One will be from the police, he thought. Somebody who wanted that reward told. And now somebody knows. In a few seconds, Dad will know too. The maid, who usually came Fridays, had not, since she too celebrated Thanksgiving. Mr. Thompson's ad still hung over the side of the coffee table. Star was in her room on the phone, of course, having been unable to make calls for 4 whole days. He was momentarily alone. He picked up the ad without letting his eyes read the words, crushed it with both fists, and dropped it in the wastebasket. His heart was at it again. It had a new hobby. It liked to double its speed. Just when he thought he was faking it fine, his heart would betray him, thrum like bass guitar strings. Morgan did not have long to wait. Dad slammed out of his office, door hitting doorstop with a rubbery thud. This is it, thought Morgan. He's going to throw me up against the wall, break my arm. The news is next, said Dad, jogging past. Get those televisions on. I lost the whole world on Bermuda. This is it for vacations. I hate being isolated. The room turned to water around Morgan. He had to swim to his seat, grabbing the sofa back as if it were the pool room, trying to put bones back into his jellyfish body. Guatemala, Morgan! Shouted his father. Morgan tried to recall a time when Guatemala had seemed important. 43,000 refugees, said Anne of silver hair, have fled into Mexico, but some are beginning to return. Morgan concentrated on refugees. It sure beat the other stuff he had to concentrate on. How did you even think about 43,000 people fleeing? Were they on the road? Changes of clothing, loaves of bread, and 2-year-olds under their arms? What did towns look like with 43,000 people on their way out or in? Did you get that, son? Demanded his father. Yes, Dad, thanks. Compared to Guatemala, he said to himself, compared to 43,000 refugees wandering around, what's one car accident? This calmed him for 2 minutes. He knew because he timed himself. Maybe he could work up to some more calm time, the way you worked up to more weights. He would add guilt-free minutes. Eventually, he would get himself to an hour, and then to 24 hours, and then he could forget about it. It would be meaningless, just another traffic accident in the big road slick of life. Monday again. Her second Monday since the stop sign. Perhaps she would spend her life counting the Mondays since the stop sign. The principal of East Line High took his duties seriously. He had put Mr. Thompson's ad on the main bulletin board. Who murdered my wife? I don't know, but I will find out. Look at this beautiful woman, only 26. You killed her. You ended her life and left mine empty forever. Don't sleep tonight. Lie there. Think about my wife. Think about my motherless son. Reward. Tell me who murdered my wife. Today, said Mr. Fielding, I will drive with Taft, Chase, and Remy. Remy held her name tag up to signify willingness to switch. She wanted to stay in the library and hear the gossip and guesses. Incredibly, Mr. Fielding saw the motion. Yes, Remy, he said, reading off her tag. You. Hasn't she done more driving than anybody else? Complained Jose, who had been planning to take her place. Mr. Fielding was confused. How could one person do more driving than another? Taft, Chase, and Remy followed him out of the library and past Mrs. B. Taft drove. Exiting the school campus meant coming close to the wreck. Remy wiped tears from her cheeks. You're taking this so hard, said Taft. You didn't know Denise Thompson, did you? I killed her. Does that count? Chase said. I think about it all the time. And to think that our class actually. Shut up, said Taft. Lark's eyes regarded Morgan. They were just eyes, not attached to Lark at all, but as if she had popped them in that morning. They did not blink. They did not drift away. They were fastened on him. Morgan braced himself. This was it. Lark was going to talk about it. She was going to say, "So, Morgan, what signs did you and Nicky and Remy steal that night? I knew better than to go along." Alexandra leaned way forward and swung her yellow hair so it grazed Morgan's shoulder. "So, Morgan," she said flirtily, "what are you getting me for Christmas?" Morgan was truly astonished. "Me?" He knew Christmas was coming. He had the pageant rehearsal scheduled from Mrs. Willett. Sunday night he and his mother had taken the boxes of decorations down from the attic. Star had stacked CDs to play the endless round of Christmas carols Mom would want playing for the next 4 weeks. But presents? For Alexandra? "So far," announced Alexandra, "I am considering getting you a calendar of girls who win weightlifting championships, or else a calendar to increase your vocabulary." "Why do I need a calendar?" Alexander kissed his cheek. His mouth fell open as if he expected her to feed him. "I'm giving you a calendar," said Alexandra, "so you'll have plenty of room to jot down the dates you and I are going out." Morgan could not recall the slightest suggestion on his part that he might date Alexandra. Mr. Willett was right. "I'm going out with Remy," he said quickly. He hoped he would get to Remy before the rest to let her know. The class went nuts. "You are? That's so neat. Why didn't you say so?" "She didn't tell me." This was entirely from girls. The boys were paralyzed. Morgan's involvement with girls might spread and contaminate them. "A driver's ed romance," said Jose, clasping her hands like an illustration on a Valentine's card. "Ooh, Morgan, I love it. Did it start in the back seat, with Mr. Fielding as chaperone?" How incredible, thought Morgan. We're not going to talk about the ad. We're not going to mention the sign. He suddenly wondered if other members of the class had gone out that Thursday night and taken their own stop signs. "Stay in the slow lane, Taft," said Mr. Fielding. It's one of my kids, he thought. He had half heard the giggling talk of sign stealing. He half knew who did the mailbox bashing, too. Half listening was key. Then he could hold himself only half responsible. My kids. He never thought of his classes that way anymore. They were other people's kids, in whom he had no interest and whose lives he assumed would never again intersect with his. But there was a scrap of teacher left in him, a piece he was surprised to find large enough to cut. "Oh, dear God," he thought, "when did I stop being a teacher?" His kids had done these things. His kids, whose names he did not bother to learn, whose driving he did not bother to supervise, whose faces he made no effort to remember. It was one of the Kristen, Kirsten, Christine crowd, one of the watery blondes who knew the rules for mailbox baseball. I was once a good person. Once, he thought. I was like Matt Willett. I was passionate. I taught and they learned. Why did I stop teaching math? Why did I turn driver's ed where nothing matters? But that's the problem, isn't it? He thought. It matters most. And I didn't care. "Turn on to Cherry," he said to Taft, "and pull over." He did not glance at Taft to see the boy's expression. They got out of the car. The double post still stuck up out of the dirt, 6 feet of it, the top rudely sliced. Temporary blinking yellow lights on a sawhorse marked the intersection now. Remy, Taft, Chase, and Mr. Fielding grouped around it, hands folded like people gathered at a grave. Mr. Fielding felt as if he had been at a stop sign of his own for a long time, half dead, still teaching, not as dead as Denise Thompson. "Who took it?" said Mr. Fielding. Do not panic, thought Remy. He's guessing. He can't even tell us from Crystal, Carson, and Joanne. Stand still. Stay calm. How would we know who took it? Said Taft. He moved restlessly, watching his feet as if trying to learn a dance step. Mac did that when he was guilty of something. Was Taft guilty of something, or were his feet cold? Or was Taft protecting her? They stood on the half frozen ground until Mr. Fielding tired of staring at the post. Nobody said anything else. Nance Campbell adored Christmas. Parties were warmer, greetings were gayer, laughter was kinder. She had a collection of decorations from all around the world: stars and angels, candy canes and icicles, and camels and candles. It took the entire first weekend in December, all four Campbells working, to decorate the house. Real holly was wound up the banisters, and wreaths hung from every door. On their way home from the Nutcracker Ballet, it actually snowed a little. Flurries that didn't count but made Morgan's mother happy. "Do you think we might actually have a white Christmas this year?" she said dreamily. Dad was a ridiculous romantic. One snowless December, Dad had actually trucked in snow as a Christmas gift for Mom. "Did you name me for Christmas, Mom?" said Star. She asked this a lot because she liked the answer. "I wanted a name," said their mother softly, "that rang and sang." Morgan wondered what the ringing and singing would be like if they found out about the stop sign. Dad tapped the automatic garage door opener on the visor, and the long wall of the two-car garage lifted. The BMW pulled in next to the Range Rover. The garage doors closed silently behind them, and they went indoors. What would little Bobby Thompson's Christmas be like? Had his dead mommy already bought presents? Would Santa bring Bobby presents from a dead woman? And Mr. Thompson, taking out those ads, what would his Christmas be like? His mother surprised Morgan with an intense hug, stepping back to hold his face possessively. He let her do this, and she hugged him again. "I'm so happy," she said. "You know how sometimes your family seems perfect, and the day was just right, and Christmas is coming?" She and Dad waltzed the rest of the way down the hall, through the living room and the dining room, and into the front hall, and through the kitchen, and into the family room and back. "Yuck," said Star succinctly, vanishing upstairs before she got dragged into this. How much older Star seemed in that dark green velvet skirt. Denise Thompson would never get older. "Dad," he said during the first slew of ads before the late news, "do you believe in church, or are you just going because you're running for office?" He recognized a flicker of hope in his father's eyes, that this difficult son was addressing him. Not exactly your basic easy question, but still speech. "Well, I guess," said his father, "the more responsibility you take on, or in my case want to take on, the more help you need. Our state has every problem there is: race riots, lousy schools, collapsing bridges, second-rate hospitals, more immigrants than we can house. I have plans, but—" Give me a way out, Morgan thought. A sign that I don't have to worry about the sign? "I don't believe what I believe," said his father. "I don't think most people know for sure. I only know that words of wisdom that have helped for thousands of years help me too." "Like what?" His father quoted the Bible, easily, as if he used the words all the time. "Like Micah, 'And what doth the Lord require of thee, but to do justly and love mercy?'" The news came back on. "It helps me decide things to say that in my mind," said his father. Morgan could not recall his father ever before uttering a sentence when the anchor was talking. If the Lord requires Dad to do justly, thought Morgan, and if justice is prison. On the other hand, if the Lord also requires mercy, how much justice and how much mercy would I get? If it's up to Dad, I guess there would be some mercy. If it's up to the husband, it would be all justice and no mercy. But I don't blame him. I'd kill me too if I were the husband. Mom slipped into the room, sitting next to Dad and leaning on him squishily. The next ad was not for soft drinks or cars. It was not an ad for profit or sales. It was Mr. Thompson's ad. Morgan's thickened fingers were so useless he could not wrap them around his Pepsi can. It slid out of his grip, down the edge of the sofa, and onto the floor. Nothing spilled. It stayed upright. It was doing better than Morgan. The guy was paying for television time. Where did he get the money? What did he hope to accomplish? The ad was narrated by a masculine voice that trembled with a rage Morgan well recognized. Adrenaline screaming for action, muscles requiring that he pound out of a room. A home video, blurry and off center, filled the screen. Denise Thompson knelt on the green grass of summer, her arms out, her hair blowing, while her little son Bobby staggered toward her. Red toddler pants, snaps on the inseam. Bobby's hair and eyes were the same color as his mother's. His dead mother's. What have I done? How can I undo it? There must be a way to undo it. Morgan tried to remember even a single verse from his years of Sunday school, even a single word that would help him the way Micah helped his father. Morgan's living mother sipped her drink. I agree with you, Rafe. Whoever took that sign should be shot.